Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. I believe this is dropping on Friday afternoon because we dropped a Kai Havertz video, if all went well, yesterday afternoon with Henry and produced by Mikey, so go check that out on Football Daily. Great to get access to one of the Premier League's most informed players now.
Huge, yeah.
When it was filmed, slightly different timing though?
Yes, it was filmed quite a few weeks ago now. I like to think that it was the maybe the kick he needed just to press on.
So, mate. I think so. I spoke to Zach afterwards after he watched it, and he said that you got a lot out of him. So you've done a better job than Zach.
It's always one of those where we're now. I think you're both 30 or almost 30.
Yeah. Hang on a second. 29 for a few more months.
Okay, 29, 30. It's one of those where you look at Kai Havertz, you're like, wow, this is a 6 foot. He's like 6'2", 6'3", or whatever. Big guy. I'm like, he's only 24. He's just so young. Yeah. It's just crazy. It's one of those moments you realise, wow.
Makes you feel less of a man, doesn't it?
We've got one more transfer in us at best, I'd say, as professionals. But
I'm already over the hill. I've been going on the downhill since.
Yeah, you're already getting 1 year extensions on your contract at this point. So.
For hairline reasons. Yeah. Brutal. McCubbs, how are you?
Yeah, good.
Champions League chaos again last night in Istanbul.
Yeah.
Can you guys just have a boring 1-0 win?
No,
it doesn't exist.
It clearly doesn't. It clearly doesn't.
In the Champions League.
I mean, that's what's crazy is that Man United's goal difference after 5 games in the Champions League, or the goals scored and goals against, is pretty similar to Man United's goals scored and goals against after 12, 13
in the Premier
games
League,
in the Premier League. United are a pretty dire watch most of the time domestically. In Europe, just absolute chaos, providing constant entertainment for the neutral. But yeah, I mean, Galatasaray. I mean, Galatasaray. I was saying to Joe before, like Galatasaray away, a 3-3 draw with 1 game remaining, without the context of everything else. Like before the season had started, I would have been like, okay, great, like that will, that's a great result. In the context of everything, obviously not a great result, but yeah, man, what a group that has turned out to be. Yeah, I actually think this Champions League group stage in general has been the most entertaining I've seen in years. Like, I feel like usually the Champions League, I actually can give or take the group stage, and once it gets to the last 16, then we start seeing all the best games of the season. Like, it's just like relentless. But this year, like the group of death with Milan and Newcastle and PSG and Dortmund has been like so good, has lived up to expectation massively. It's been great to see a side like Sociedad really, they could win that group now.
Even Barcelona's group's been quite tight.
Yeah, that's been pretty good as well, and also like good to see Barcelona progress as well. As they did last night. We'll get on to Barcelona a little bit. Real Madrid's group has been pretty entertaining. It's been a really, really genuinely entertaining group stage.
Nice. Henry, have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, I loved it. I was even on the way here, I saw some Lens fans in the tube. They were still smiling away.
Yeah. So, were they good?
I live next to the Emirates, and I could just hear,
Gunners, yeah.
It was pretty relentless last night. But yeah, it was. I agree. Like,
the PSV game yesterday, by the way, absolutely.
I was going to say, even PSV getting out their group, potentially they're in pole position too. That's really cool. But yeah, I think it's always nice to see like a surprise runner go a bit deep into the competition. I think there's a few set up for that this year, and as you said, Real Sociedad. Playing their part too, and we might be discussing one of the key characters in that a bit later in the show.
Absolutely. As you've seen by the title of this video, we are actually talking specifically about Xavi. It's a Xavi special, maybe for the next 15-20 minutes, because he's now 2 years into his reign, I believe, and there is, there's some noise, there's a little murmuring, is he really good enough for Barcelona? It's probably been a question really ever since he was appointed as Barcelona manager. Obviously last season went exceptionally well. This year's had its difficulties. So, McCubbs, we're going to kick off with Barcelona's 23-24 season. Is he doing well enough this season, or do you think there's other factors at play that have meant that Barcelona haven't been able to perform at their best?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, isn't it, to be honest? Not to sit on the fence too much, but their recent form has not been particularly good. I think they started the season very brightly, but have had injury issues, of course. The Pedri injuries have plagued Xavi ever since he arrived at the club. But in terms of recent form, They've lost a bit of pace in the title race. That 2-1 loss to Real Madrid, which was their first in the league this season, and was slightly unlucky. Last minute. Lost in the last minute, had plenty of chances to win that game as well. That loss plus that 1-1 draw with Vallecano on the weekend, they're now means they're now 4 points off Real Madrid and Girona in fourth. But they are only 4 points adrift. That's absolutely fine at this stage of the season. It's just the fact that it's not a 2-horse race this year. Like, Atleti are very much in the race. Girona, I think you have to count them in the race given how good they've been so far this season. And then kind of between that, they had to come from behind to beat Porto on Wednesday night. If it wasn't for Joao Cancelo putting on an absolute masterclass,
he was insanely good.
We might be looking at a different story, and Barcelona may still have to play that final game of the group to get through, or win that final game of the group to get through. Also had to come from behind to beat Alaves. They were behind for around 60 minutes in that game as well. So yeah, performances have not been, even though results, have not been absolutely disastrous. Let's also remember, Xavi cannot beat Vallecano. The last time Barcelona beat them in the league was in 2019, which is pretty outrageous. The performances haven't been great. I think they haven't produced they haven't produced 2 expected goals in one game since I think the start of October. So which is pretty mad because they're still, I think, the second most intense pressers in the league. They are by far the biggest possession side in the league. They still do dominate games, but the chance creation just isn't quite there. I think their biggest chance creator is Raphinha, and I think this is something that you can definitely put at Xavi. He has not played Raphinha anywhere near enough. I think 7 of his 10 appearances have come off the bench. He's also the highest dribbler, and obviously when we're looking at per 90 stats, if you're coming on late in games, you're going to get a little bit of an advantage against hard defences. But nevertheless, Raphinha is still producing when he's coming off the bench in terms of his chance creation. So that concerns me a little bit, I think. But at the same time, there are mitigating factors. Yes, injuries have been an issue, especially in midfield. I think elsewhere, not so much, but Pedri and Frankie de Jong have missed 16 games combined just in the league. Xavi is now out for the rest of the season. Oriol Romeu, there should never have been that much expectation put on him, despite him performing, pretty solidly before he arrived. But he was never going to be a Busquets replacement, let's face it. And yeah, he has struggled recently. I think Pedri and Frankie coming back into the side, I think, is only a positive in the long term. But you can't expect them necessarily to hit the ground running straight away, especially Pedri, given the amount of absences he's had over the last 2 years. So I think you'd hope that Pedri will, once he's really back in flow, will make a really, really big difference to the side. And then as for the goal scoring, I guess Lewandowski has scored in just one game since September, and that is a worry. That is definitely a worry.
It's been a bit of a long-term thing with him since the World Cup, just not being quite as good as he was pre-World Cup.
It's true. This time last year, he was still on fire. And it's not just that he's not hitting the back of the net. His shots have dropped from 4.2 to 3, and I don't know a time in Lewandowski's career where he wasn't taking over 4 shots a game. Certainly during his Bayern days, he was always hitting at least 4, if not at least 4.5. So there is a sense, I think, that Lewandowski finally age might be catching up a little bit with him. That's not to say he can't revive his form, but like you say, Dukes, it's kind of been since January that we've seen him drop off. And when there isn't another lights out goal scorer in the side, that is a bit of a worry. On the other hand, they've already had 15 players contribute goals this season, so there are goals coming from throughout the side. They're still top of the league on XG, although I think their early season form has a lot to do with that. The last month has not been so good. They're second to Atletico Madrid on expected goals against as well, so the defence has been fine, but Ter Stegen hasn't been quite at the level that he was last year. Still playing absolutely fine, but just isn't the best keeper. Yeah, it isn't the best keeper in Europe.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are concerns, but I think plus side, Joao Cancelo has been absolutely brilliant. He's completing over 2.5 dribbles a game so far. Won them the game against Porto. So in terms of like a talismanic figure, I think Cancelo has very quickly become one of those at Barca. In some ways, it's a shame that he has to play on the right, because obviously Balde is great on the left, and they don't have a decent right back otherwise. Because I do still think, like, in terms of his impact, especially in the final third, I do still think Cancelo is better off the left. Certainly, in those last couple of years at Man City, I think that's where he was at his most effective. So it's a little bit of a shame in that sense, and that's where he was. That's where he was at his devastating best against Porto as well. So there are reasons to believe that Barcelona will still go on and win the league. To be honest, Real Madrid, who I think are still their biggest challengers in terms of taking the title back off them. They have their own issues. Vinicius is out until January. Can Bellingham and Rodrigo provide all the goals in that time? Because Bellingham has been heavily relied upon. That is a potential issue there. I can absolutely see them dropping points between now and the middle of January. But I think the next 2 weeks will be really telling. They've got Atletico Madrid this weekend, then they've got Girona, two massive 6-pointers there. So I think we'll have a much better idea after those games. And as for Xavi, I don't think it's that surprising that 2 years into his reign, after a month in which the football has not been so good and results have taken a bit of a turn as well, that there are some questions. The Barcelona press, no matter who it is in the dugout, will always be very kind of place managers under close scrutiny. There was a picture recently of Laporta and Rafa Marquez that got a lot of press. Laporta is known to be a big fan of him, obviously hired him as the B team manager. And there is talk that if Xavi was to go, that Marquez would be potentially in line for a promotion a la Pep Guardiola there. But I think everyone's probably getting a bit ahead of themselves in that sense. He's secured last 16 of the Champions League.
Which is big.
I think Barcelona generally have been pretty good in the Champions League so far. Obviously, after last season, that was, a source of big pressure for Xavi, because, if they didn't make it through the Champions League group, then I think, his neck would have been on the line, most probably. But generally speaking, I think he's done a good job over the last 2 years. It's not been plain sailing, but he's Laporta's man after all. He brought him in, and generally speaking, in Laporta's, in his first reign at least, Barcelona had 2 managers. So it's not like he is the most trigger happy president. I think Xavi has bought himself at least until, I think Xavi will last the season, most probably.
There we have it. I mean, it does feel like, with his club legend status, it's going to be difficult to get rid of him. But I think there are, necessary questions to be asked about whether he's getting enough out of this squad. There have been injuries, of course, but a lot of the football is just a little bit dour, I would say, over the last couple of months at least. I mean, Henry, where do you stand on this? I mean, what would it take for Barcelona to fire him? Would it have to be, not qualifying for the Champions League? Does it not winning the title? What do you think?
It's not loads to add, really, on what Mikey said there. I think it's pretty well covered up.
Sorry, mate. I've just rambled for ages.
No, it was true. I think you're spot on. I think we have to remember, Xavi still was managing Al Sadd in the Qatari Stars League before this. He still came into a pretty horrendous situation. He's had to deal with a lot of the backroom stuff. He is such a figurehead for the fans, which Ronald Koeman could never have been. In that he does create a link to the fans, to the club, which Barcelona need more than ever at this moment in time, given everything that has happened off the pitch. And as you kind of said, Laporta, he's a wild but I think innately sensible guy. Well, not sensible. I don't know about the word sensible, but I think.
Could you apply that to any Barcelona president?
Right. But I think he gets it in terms of the manager. Is what I'm trying to say. And
he certainly gets it in terms of the club's identity as well, doesn't he?
Absolutely. And he was quoted as saying, "We held talks with the coach and his technical staff. We have full confidence." That's what he was quoted as saying earlier this week. Going on to say, "I've always said that he is our coach. and we are with him. We have full confidence. That Rayo Vallecano draw, he lamented 2 potential penalties that didn't go.
Yeah, I mean, the one on Raphinha was a joke.
Their way. Well, absolutely. I feel like every club has got a reason to say
for sure.
Like
Some
decisions go against them. At the end of the day, they should be beating Rayo Vallecano with that squad that they put out. I know they've got injuries, but they've still got a plethora of very expensive world-class players in that starting 11. There is an onus on Xavi to make that tick. If you look at that game, they had like 67% possession. Okay, almost double the amount of passes to Rayo Vallecano. All very pretty, but they still had the same number of shots on target in that match. Like, you have to be more clinical. I think the era of just high possession football, even if you look at the way that Pep's kind of gone with just getting a few more bigger bruisers in his squad, I think you've just got to be more physically imposing. You've got to have the ability to grind down your opposition and score goals in different ways. It's not, I think, just saying, well, look, we play beautiful football all the time isn't enough necessarily. And they brought in the manager, like the Villarreal guy, Quique Setien, sorry, because they wanted that, and that kind of backfired. Like, you have to move the times a little bit. Barcelona have to figure out a way to score more goals, and as you said, the situation with Lewandowski isn't good enough. And like, once again, that was a £50 million spend on a 33-year-old striker at the time. They've spent 60 million on Raphinha. They have to pay more. Ferran Torres was another 60 million pound spend. These are not cheap acquisitions. I know they only spent 3.4 million euros in the summer. Romeo was one of the best central defensive midfielders in La Liga last year. No, he's not on the same levels as Busquets, but they should be getting more out of this squad. Like, even Cancelo on loan, that's a 60 million euro loanee coming in. I mean, João Felix as well, someone who has an amazing game, has a great game, and then a load of crap games, and then we sort of start again, don't we? We sort of like run down the list. He was meant, at one point we were saying, he's the link with Lewandowski he's been looking for. Lewandowski wants someone who can run off him and create space for him. That's not working. They have to figure out how to get this team functioning. I know Felix scored against Porto, but still, the point remains. There is plenty of good players in that squad. Gundogan as well, a free transfer, unbelievably good free transfer. So yeah, for that, Xavi has to do a little bit better. But yeah, they should be standing by him. As you said, to win the league last year, okay, it was a pretty low year for La Liga. In fact, we're in a pretty low period for La Liga, quite frankly. Hence the reason Girona, full credit to them, but have been able to rise from almost nowhere to be a title challenger. Atletico have silently improved behind the scenes a little bit, but Real Madrid, as you say there, Mikey, they're basically relying on Jude Bellingham at the moment. Joselu missing with his knee yesterday. It wasn't really against Napoli. It was a real shame. So yeah,
this like him scoring and then pretty much apologising to the fans.
They need to. This is going to be a big test for Xavi to see how he can get this team to function in a 4-horse race like this, because last year they didn't really have lots of competition. But then again, he did win the league and he's got them out of the Champions League group stage. So it is progress, whether you like it or not. His win percentage is only marginally better than Ronald Koeman, but I think we have to consider multiple, like, the football they're playing under Koeman was not appreciated by the fans whatsoever. It's a completely different squad. I think also, if you look at, to kind of back Xavi up a bit, if you look at all the young players he's bringing through, this is really instrumental stuff to the future of the club. This team is quite evidently a few cycles away from where it wants to be in terms of, it's, in a weird way, they tried to fix it overnight with big star additions. That's just not how it works. It's going to take a few transfer windows. And I think as long as they're just in the top 4 race, that's almost fine. It's interesting looking at the late Terry Venables? Oh,
just Terry.
Terry Venables. The fact that when he went there, they hadn't won La Liga in like 11 years. Like, you've said this before. Like, Barcelona do go through periods where they don't win things, and that's fine. Like, they still won La Liga last year. There's this idea they need to instantaneously be winning all the time, and that should be weighing on Xavi. I don't think that's necessarily true. Like, they can build towards something great, and we're seeing that with the players that they're bringing through. Okay, they need to get a few more smarter signings in through the door. They don't need to spend 60 million. They can be a bit more smart with their acquisitions. The thing that I think is working against Xavi is his contract is up in 2025. And I do wonder if there's going to get to a point where they said, look, he was the guy to transition us from the era of chaos into an era of stability. And then maybe that's when they start to look on and think, maybe we now need a manager who is proven at the very, very top of the game. Because I still don't think, even with that La Liga title win last year, Xavi is a world-class manager like everyone else. No. I think there are better managers out there, and I think once Barcelona are in a good place, those managers, they'll always go knocking on the door of Barcelona. They'll always want to manage there. So once they're in a better place, that's where I worry for him. But in terms of getting rid of him now, yes, the football has to improve. Yes, they should be beating teams like Vallecano and dealing with Alaves a bit more comfortably. But they are okay. They're in a stable place, which is where they've not really been for a long time. So my worry is once they're out of the stable place and expectation is really on him, that's when I think Laporta will look at Xavi and go, okay, you need to really prove yourself now. So that's my concern is down the line. At the moment, they would be really, really foolish to fire him.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I think they're also just managing this season while they redevelop the new camp as well, which was such a key part of why he didn't have money to spend in the summer. I do agree with your sentiment that, he shouldn't be under pressure and there shouldn't be so much focus on titles right now, but unfortunately because of the financial situation, like they do have to go deep in Europe pretty much every year, so that is the big thing. But I totally agree about not necessarily winning La Liga year on year, but I agree with you. I think Balde coming through, Xavi coming through, Lamine Yamal coming through, Fermin Lopez, like there's lots of reasons to be positive for Barcelona. It just hasn't quite clicked on the pitch yet this season. The big question then is, if they did get rid of Xavi at any stage, like who would they get in to replace him? I don't think there's that many top managers that are available right now, to be honest. I think a lot of managers have struggled in the last 18 months, to be totally honest. But according to sport journalist Alfredo Martinez, he wrote about how much about how much Laporta, Deco and Pedri had complimented Imanol Alguacil, the Real Sociedad boss, when they bumped into him at an awards ceremony recently. Apparently, Laporta was doing his sort of salesmanship, his sort of flirting, saying, I love the way you play football. And Xavi's contract, interestingly, runs out at the same time as Alguacil's does. And there's no surprise that they're looking at Imanol Alguacil as a potential successor. He has done remarkable work at Real Sociedad since taking over midway through that season in, I think it was 2018. They've gone 9th, 7th, 5th, 6th, 4th. They're 6th at the moment. But he also won the Copa del Rey. He's doing fantastically well in the Champions League up until this week. They're still in a battle to finish. Well, they've already qualified, but still in a battle to finish top of that group with Inter Milan. This season, they're 6 points off Barcelona in 4th. And with Barcelona's fixtures in the next few weeks, there is a possibility that they could catch them up as well. And we talk about how Xavi's brought through young players. At Real Sociedad, it's exactly the same thing. Zubamendi, Oyarzabal, Barrenechea, etc. My one concern with Alguacil, which is a pretty big one, is it is just totally different managing Real Sociedad to Barcelona. He's been at Real Sociedad, pretty much the majority of his entire adult life as a player, then as a coach. It is just a completely different level of pressure managing Barcelona, especially when you are not attached to the Barcelona way. We saw, as Henry correctly points out, with Quique Setien, we saw with Ernesto Valverde, who is even successful at Barcelona. If you're not attached to that Barcelona way, which they're so obsessed with, which potentially has held them back at different points over the last 10 years, this Barcelona DNA idea, then I think things can get very difficult for you, and you're given less leeway when things go against you. Like Xavi would probably be under more pressure if he wasn't Xavi, whereas Alguacil, it would be a huge ask for him to come in and succeed instantly. But there's no reason he can't do it. He is a really talented manager. I just would worry for the instant turn as soon as things start to go down. But one to watch out for. I mean, other than that, you're looking, would Klopp's contract be available in 2025, 2026? Does he fit that Barcelona way? I think he's such a dramatic change.
He's such a big manager, though. I think the fans would accept it. This is the thing. Like Alguacil, Valverde, Setien, they aren't superstar managers. Like Klopp is a superstar. I think Barcelona would snap their hands off for the chance of having Klopp as their manager.
Oof. It's a big
one. Or a Pep return. I think his contract is up at Man City in 2025.
I always think Pep wants to go manage internationally, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It depends on energy levels. Pep back at Barcelona would be a hell of a story. Also, the biggest challenge he's probably taken on ever in his career.
No, he doesn't like that. He doesn't like challenges. He likes ready-made teams.
Guys, where do you stand on Xavi? Is he good enough for Barcelona? Is he under pressure? And if not, when will he potentially be under pressure? Is there a ticking time bomb on Xavi's future at Barcelona? Let us know in the comments down below. And let's move on to our big match predictions. Okay, moving on to big match predictions. So rounding up last week's action, PSG versus Monaco. Henry backed Monaco. McCub said a draw. I said PSG win. It was 5-2, so a point to me.
Just quickly, when it was 2-2, I was like, my 3-2 is so on, baby. Here it comes. The goals are flying.
Yeah, that was a really entertaining game. Dortmund versus Gladbach. Henry and I both said it would be a draw. McCubb said a win, but he didn't see the 4-2 coming. Unfortunately, the draw was again on at one stage. Gladbach going 2-0 up in that game, so that's 1 point to McCubbin. Juventus versus Inter Milan. Henry backed Juve, I backed Inter. McCubb said 1-1, which was a perfect score. Continues his magnificent start to the season.
I gave almost no thought to the predictions last week.
No, you didn't.
I was very random with them, so maybe I should just do that again.
Just shoot from the hip. Yeah. You got 22 points, or you are on 22 points. I'm on 16. Henry, 8. It's not been your year so far.
No.
Right, let's move on to our first game. We are talking about Bayer Leverkusen versus Borussia Dortmund. Sunday, 4:30 p.m. First versus fourth. There are 10 points between them. I'll actually be there, guys. Just a bit of a name
Crazy.
drop. I'm incredibly excited. My first ever Bundesliga game.
How come?
So I'm going to a conference with Sky on Monday, and we're going to a Bundesliga game beforehand on Sunday, which is I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be epic. But McCubbs, you've been having a little look at this, or a little think about this. Will this be the Leverkusen train rolling on?
I think probably yes. I think you're in for an absolute treat, dude, because I think this is probably going to be one of the best Bundesliga games this season. You know, two quite good attacking teams. Say quite good. Leverkusen are an absolute, like you say, they're just absolute behemoth right now. Beat Werder Bremen away on the weekend. Frimpong and Grimaldo getting in on the mix. I say Grimaldo getting in on the mix. He's like their best player. He's just their best player at the moment. 4 goals in his last 3 games. He's now level with Boniface in terms of the goals scored. I know Boniface. I mean, this is the thing with Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen this season, is that like Boniface hasn't scored a goal since the start of October. But it doesn't matter because Grimaldo's just like putting them in left, right, and centre. What a pickup he was for free from Benfica.
He's been on track to get close to sort of 18, 19 goals this season. Obviously, that won't continue. In
terms of his output so far, like we're a third of the way through the season. And it's just such a clever pickup. You know, Grimaldo, we've always been recommending him to sides in need of a left back or a left wing back.
Videos we said about Barcelona. Yeah.
And the amount of, and I feel like a lot of the time with those kind of players, there's a reason why big clubs don't go for them, that, you know, us as mere kind of pundits
Mortals.
and kind of, that don't quite, like that does tend to happen quite a lot. But in the case of Grimaldo, what a signing he's been for Leverkusen. I think it's hard to bet against them. The only points they've dropped this season have been against Bayern Munich back in September, and that was that 2-2 draw. A game in which they definitely could have won as well. I can't really see it going any other way. I think Dortmund, still do. They've still got something about them, but I think at this stage they're probably out of the title race. To be honest, it feels early to call it, but. Do I see this Dortmund team making up 10 points between now and the 10? Like, even at this stage, I just don't know. I just don't see it. Just given how strong Bayern are, and even when Bayern are like not playing so well, they've still got like Sane and Kane in the form of their lives. Leverkusen have not shown any signs of slowing down yet, and I think we're still yet to see the best of Leipzig. So I think really Dortmund are, like top 4 should be their main concern at this stage. And I think, although they still can turn it on, scored 4 goals against Mönchengladbach, they still went behind twice in that game. And they, Brandt is continuing his great form from last season, but they don't have like a goal scorer they can rely on consistently. Brandt, Füllkrug and Marlon have 4 goals each. No one has any more than that. When you look at the top 10 Bundesliga goal scorers this season, there isn't a Dortmund player in sight. And I think that is an issue for them. Like, I really do think that's an issue, especially when the midfield has been, quite inconsistent so far this season. I think Sabat's is their biggest appearance maker in central midfield, but they haven't really had a consistent pairing there. And the defence suffers because of that. It just does. And we knew that Bellingham was going to leave a big hole there, and he has both in an attacking and defensive sense. They're able to make up the attacking numbers just about, but I think they're just not they're not quite there in the way that a club like Leverkusen is. I just don't see them as really a big title challengers this season. So I think for this game, I think I'll go for 3-1 to
3-1.
Leverkusen. Yeah.
Fair enough. Henry, do you see it being a little tighter?
Ooh, yeah, I think Leverkusen's defence is pretty underrated. Interesting to hear the Leverkusen CEO ranting about the AFCON, saying he was going to, he's so upset because they're going to lose 5 players, which is kind of interesting. I'm going to go...
You do know that before
That's a
your season
recruitment
starts,
issue, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I will go 3-2 to Leverkusen.
Fair enough. Thriller, going for that extra bonus one.
Well,
Love your work. Love your work. I mean, you would have got that last week if you went with the Dortmund score. There will be goals in this one, I think. I mean, Dortmund quietly impressive in the Champions League, to be honest.
Yeah, unreal what they've done.
I didn't really see that coming, especially because they were comparatively poor last year and the year before that, and then lost to Graham Potter's Chelsea last year, which is really unfortunate. But yeah, they've been much better in the Champions League than they have been in the league. I'm going for an absolute thriller that I am going to witness. Cannot believe it. I'm very, very excited. I will go 4-1 to Leverkusen. It's going to be a lot of fun. Right, Napoli versus Inter Milan, Sunday, 7:45 p.m. Fourth versus first. There are 8 points between them already. Henry, let's talk Napoli. I actually thought they created quite a few good opportunities against Real Madrid in midweek.
Yeah, they did. To give Walter Mazzarri credit where credit's due, he started off with a win away to Atalanta, which is no mean feat whatsoever, and they look really good in that 2-1 victory as well. Kavica looks like he's playing sort of close to some of his best football so far.
A few hugs with Walter Mazzarri I saw as well.
There you go. And then maybe he is sort of the father figure that they need once again. And then, yeah, I think, as you said, against Real Madrid, okay, they lost 4-2 in the end, but they took the lead. They had it at 2-2. Like they were by no means blown away.
Also, some of Real Madrid's goals were peachy.
Yeah, absolutely. Rodrigo has really stepped up this year. Some of his finishing has been...
Get Vinicius really over to the right. We found a new left winger.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, Napoli are entering a very testing period, aren't they? The next 2 games are against Inter Milan at home and then Juventus away. I mean, they're 8 points behind Inter. Roma are actually looking pretty good in 5th at the moment. Lukaku quietly putting together a pretty formidable campaign up front. So they need to... They qualifying for the Champions League, I think, is sort of a minimum priority for this Napoli side this year. Otherwise, gossip columns saying Osimhen's even interested in joining Chelsea. I mean, take that as you will.
Why?
But if they were to drop out of the Champions League places, I think a lot of their big players would have a right to say, well, look, clearly the peak has come and gone. So yeah, there's a lot of pressure on them to sort of stay in the top 4. But yeah, they're still playing good football. They can still create goals from anywhere. I just do worry against an Inter Milan side. I think Mourinho came out and said this Inter team should win the league by 20 points, and I sort of agree. Like their squad is comfortably the best, and it was a shame against Juventus that they were both sides who weren't willing to try and win the game.
It was quite dull, wasn't it?
It was a dull 1-1 draw. The ultimate counter punches in Juventus up against Inter, who I think were just trying to protect. 1-1 draw away at Juventus for Inter is not
your closest rivals.
Yeah, that's fine. Like that's good. But you still that team unleashed is awesome. I mean, that goal they scored against Juventus was so nice, just quick football, and then Lautaro Martinez just more proof of how good his finishing is this season. So with this game, I think we could see another draw again, to be honest. I think I'm going to go for the 1-1 again, just because I think Napoli, the ship has been steadied a little bit, and I think Inter have enough now not to lose the game, but I still think Napoli could score. I think they could score too. So yeah, I'll go for 1-1. But I'm hoping it'll be a bit more exciting than the previous match.
Fair enough. McCubbin?
I will say I'm going to go for a Napoli win, actually. I'm going to go 2-1. I think there could be a shock on the cards. I think there's a bit of momentum with Napoli at the moment.
Fair enough. There he goes. I mean, he's top of the league. So don't doubt it.
Shooting from the hip once
fair
again.
play to Inter as well. They came back from 3-0 down against Benfica in the Champions League on Wednesday. Both teams playing on Wednesday. Maybe they'll be a little bit tired. But I'm still going to back Inter. Although they did let me down last week, I'm going to go by the same scoreline I went for last week. I'm going to go 2-1 to Inter. Right, let's talk quickly. Barcelona versus Atletico Madrid. Sunday, 8 p.m. 4th versus 3rd. They are level on points, but Atleti have a +5 goal difference on Barcelona. We've talked a load about Barcelona already, but just to bring you up to speed with Atleti, they are 3rd, but if they win their game in hand against Sevilla, which is on the 23rd of December, they'll only be a point behind Real Madrid and Girona, which is pretty impressive. And given the state that Sevilla are in, languishing in the bottom mid-table, contriving to lose Champions League games, getting players sent off left, right, centre, make Atleti strong favourites for that as well. They bounced back from that 2-1 defeat to Las Palmas, Atleti that was, with a 3-1 win away at Valencia and a 1-0 win over Mallorca. Check out Griezmann's header in that game as well. It was such a nice goal. That was his 9th league goal of the season. Only Bellingham with 11 has more. He's having another quietly, I don't even know whether it's quiet, just another excellent season. What a player. I think he's close to becoming Atletico Madrid's all-time top goal scorer. He's obviously close to being France's all-time top goal scorer. His career couldn't have really gone much better.
No,
he's been absolutely remarkable. Played a key role in a World Cup win.
Yeah, I think just that period at Barcelona is a bit of a blot, isn't it? But that's really
his
that's
biggest
really
crime was not being Messi, though. He there was a silly signing at the time, but
he exists in like the tier below, like
the all-time greats.
I genuinely think he's in the next tier below that. Like he's just consistently had so many amazing campaigns, and when he was in the running for the Ballon d'Or, he kind of came out and said he should be considered in the top table of those guys, and everyone kind of laughed at him because then he had that Barcelona period. But last year, I don't think he even got enough recognition for what he did last year. He was best player for France. I think when as they got to the final of the World Cup,
easily the best player in La Liga as well.
Easily the best player in La Liga. Like it's just not shone enough, just how good he is. And I think it's a shame that he wasn't given the France captaincy even for a little bit.
So when you say not quite in the all-time, you're not putting him in the obviously Maradona, Messi, Ronaldo, etc. Are you putting him with like Modric and Iniesta? And
I sort of mean
Zidane?
like right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't understand why more people don't put him like he would get into any team in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, he has been brilliant. Right, Barcelona at home against Atletico Madrid. You know what? I might just go and heap a little bit more misery on Xavi. I might go 2-1 to Atleti.
Oh, away from home as well.
That's big, but it's not the Nou Camp.
Yeah, I know. But Barca's form at home is generally. I'll go 1-1. I just think Barca Atleti games tend to not be the best. I think they were a bit better last season, but generally speaking, yeah.
Henry,
1-0 Atleti.
Okay, there we go. 2 out of 3 of us backing Atleti. Wow. Huge, guys. Thank you so much for watching Continental Club for another week. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the Kai Havertz video yesterday. Look ahead to Sunday vibes on Sunday with the 3 of us once again, and we'll catch you then. Bye-bye.